My name is Ahmed, and at 65 years old, I thought I had seen it all in life. I grew up in Luxor, Egypt, where ancient tombs and temples are as common as the desert dunes. For decades, I worked as a guide in the Valley of the Kings, taking tourists to see the tombs of the ancient pharaohs. I knew every corner of that place, every hieroglyph on the walls, every shadow that formed when the sun set behind the rocky hills. But nothing could prepare me for what happened that scorching summer when the whispers of the dead became more than just legends to scare tourists. It all began subtly, almost imperceptibly. It was a day like any other, and I was guiding a small group of American tourists through Tutankhamun's tomb. The air was heavy and hot as always, filled with the smell of ancient dust and stone. While explaining the treasures that once filled the burial chamber, I noticed something strange. A cold wind passed over me, making my hair stand on end. This was unusual. The Valley of the Kings rarely gets cold, even at night. In the following days, small things began to change. The lights in the tombs flickered for no apparent reason. Objects moved when no one was looking. Once, I swore I saw a shadow move on the wall of an empty tomb, even though there was no one there but me. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just the fatigue of years of working under the scorching sun. But then the nightmares began. Every night I dreamed of the tombs. Not the clean, well-lit tombs I showed to tourists, but dark and distorted versions. In the dreams, I wandered through endless corridors, pursued by something I couldn't see but could feel. The air grew heavier with each step, and I could hear whispers in a language I didn't understand but that sounded strangely familiar. One night, I woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding. Beside my bed, I saw a shadowy figure. For a moment, I thought it was a thief, but when I turned on the light, there was no one there. However, on the floor was an ancient amulet that I was sure I had seen in one of the tombs the day before. The next day, I returned to the Valley of the Kings, determined to discover what was happening. As I walked among the tombs, I noticed the place looked different. The colors of the hieroglyphs seemed more vivid, almost glowing. And the silence was deafening. Not even the wind dared to blow. Then I heard it, a whisper so low I thought it was my imagination. But it grew louder, becoming clearer. It was an ancient voice speaking in ancient Egyptian. "Ahmed," it said, "you have been chosen." My blood ran cold. How did that voice know my name? And chosen for what? I tried to flee, but my feet felt glued to the ground. The walls around me began to move, the hieroglyphs dancing before my eyes. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it was just another nightmare. When I opened them again, I was in a chamber I had never seen before. It was enormous, larger than any tomb I knew in the Valley of the Kings. In the center was a golden sarcophagus decorated with jewels and inscriptions. And it was opening. Panic overtook me. I wanted to run, to scream for help, but my body wouldn't respond. From the sarcophagus emerged a figure. It wasn't a mummified corpse as I expected, but a bright, almost transparent entity. It was the spectral form of a pharaoh, his crown sparkling with a supernatural light. "Ahmed," the specter spoke, his voice echoing through the chamber. "For generations, you and your family have guarded our secrets. Now the time has come to fulfill your destiny." Confused and terrified, I managed to stammer, "What destiny? I'm just a guide." The pharaoh laughed, a sound that made the walls tremble. "You are much more than that, Ahmed. You are the last of an ancient lineage chosen to protect the portal between the worlds of the living and the dead." As he spoke, memories I didn't know I had began to flood my mind. I saw generations of my family working in the Valley of the Kings, not just as guides or excavators, but as guardians of an ancient secret. The pharaoh continued, "The balance is unraveling. The dead are restless, eager to return to the world of the living. You must complete the ritual to restore order." Suddenly, objects around me came to life. Statues of Egyptian gods turned to face me, their eyes glowing with a supernatural light. The ground beneath my feet began to move, forming complex symbols and patterns. "What must I do?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You must travel through the 7 chambers of death," the pharaoh replied. "In each you will face a challenge. Complete them all before dawn, or the portal will open completely and chaos will reign." No sooner had he finished speaking than I found myself in another chamber. The walls were covered in hieroglyphs that seemed to move and change. In the center was a stone table with several objects: a golden scarab, a silver ankh, a feather of mott, and a canopic jar. A voice echoed, "Choose wisely. Only one of these objects will lead you to the next chamber. The others will bring your doom." My heart pounded as I looked at the objects. I remembered stories my grandfather used to tell, stories I always thought were just legends. He spoke of ancient tests, of choices that would determine the fate of a soul. With trembling hands, I picked up the feather of Mott. The instant my fingers touched the feather, the room spun around me, and I found myself in a new chamber. And so it continued, chamber after chamber. In one, I had to decipher a riddle written in constantly changing hieroglyphs. In another, I faced my greatest fears, manifested as shadowy creatures trying to drag me into the darkness. With each challenge, I felt as if part of me was being left behind. Memories of my current life mingled with flashes of past lives, all dedicated to protecting the secret of the Valley of the Kings. In the 6th chamber, I stood before a giant mirror. My reflection was not that of the old Ahmed, but of a young priest dressed in ceremonial robes. "Accept who you truly are," the reflection said. "Only then can you complete your journey." I closed my eyes, letting the memories of thousands of years flow through me. When I opened them again, I was no longer just Ahmed the tour guide. I was the guardian, the protector, the maintainer of balance. The 7th and final chamber was the largest of all. In the center stood a great obelisk covered in golden inscriptions. Around it, the spirits of past pharaohs and queens watched in silence. "Complete the ritual," ordered the voice of the first pharaoh. "Restore the balance." Instinctively, I knew what to do. I placed my hands on the obelisk and began to recite words in a language I didn't know but that flowed naturally from my lips. The air around me began to vibrate, and I felt a powerful energy flowing through me. The spirits around me began to shine intensely, their ethereal bodies dissolving into pure light. The obelisk beneath my hands grew hot, almost unbearable to the touch, but I didn't dare let go. With a deafening roar, a wave of energy exploded from the obelisk, sweeping through the chamber. For a moment, I saw the Valley of the Kings as it truly was, not just a site of ancient tombs, but a nexus of mystical power, a meeting point between the world of the living and the dead. When the light faded, I found myself back at the entrance of the valley. The sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It seemed like nothing had changed, but I could feel the difference in the air. The balance had been restored. In the days that followed, things returned to normal, or at least what seemed normal to others. Tourists continued to come, marveling at the ancient tombs, never suspecting the secrets hidden beneath their feet. But for me, everything had changed. Every hieroglyph, every statue, every grain of sand in the Valley of the Kings now carried a deeper meaning. I continued my work as a guide, but with a renewed purpose. It was no longer just about telling stories of the past, but about protecting the delicate balance between the worlds. At night, when the valley is silent and the stars shine over the rocky hills, I sometimes hear the whispers of the pharaohs. They are no longer threatening or frightening, but a constant reminder of my duty, of my heritage. I am Ahmed, the tour guide. I am the guardian of the Valley of the Kings. And as long as I live, the secrets of the pharaohs will remain safe, the balance will be maintained, and the portal between the worlds will stay closed. But sometimes, on the darkest nights, I wonder, for how long? For I know that one day, another guardian will have to take my place. And when that day comes, the whispers of the pharaohs will begin again, calling the next chosen one to face the challenges of the Valley of the Kings.